serving you a dose of wisdom and humor with a dash of radiance. Welcome to Biscuits and Sunshine with your hosts, Callie and Landra.
Hey y'all, pull up a seat at our table for the next serving of Biscuits and Sunshine. I'm Callie.
And I'm Landra. It makes me hella happy to have you here with us. We're recording this from Distance Sport Audio Studios in Athens, Greece. Welcome to episode 23, Ikousitria. Pame, let's go.
On today's episode, we're diving deep into a topic that resonates with so many women: anxiety. Whether it's the demands of work, family, or just navigating the fast-paced world we live in, anxiety and worry, even doubt, these can feel like constant companions. Whether you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you're likely juggling multiple roles, and with that comes a very unique set of pressures and stressors. The goal for today is to talk openly about these challenges, share our stories and our experiences, and just to remind you, you're not alone. We hope this conversation helps us all explore anxiety and doubt and worry in a way that allows us not just to survive, but also to thrive in every stage of life.
Well said, Callie. And also, it's my hope that we can notice how this is just part of the human experience, going through stress, worry, anxiety, and doubt. And this got me thinking back to the end of 2019, going into 2020, where I have talked about before. I like to pick a word of intention for the year, and I had chose thrive. I was like, yeah, this feels right for 2020. I'm going to thrive. So I got my notebook. I found an awesome quote by Maya Angelou about not just surviving, thriving. I wrote it all like really nicely at the beginning of the journal. Yeah, we all know how 2020 changed the course of things for us.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wow, yeah. So I'm someone who realized I've always had like a certain level of anxiety that I've worked with throughout my life. And I thought that I have really found a great way to work with that. And what happened in 2020, as most of us, it just really kicked up a whole bunch of new things in me that really created this next level of anxiety. That, and my hypothesis now, is coupled with perimenopause. Yeah, so which is a really big side effect, they say. So I'm convinced that it was both those things together, hormone imbalances and trying to rebalance. So yeah, I just think that, that was one big thing that kicked things off. But I just think in general, so many of us are really focusing on surviving. So I thought it could be a nice way to start off our time together is just to take a moment to really imagine what it could be like to thrive. And so if you're driving, please do not close your eyes. But if you're listening to this somewhere you feel comfortable, let's just take a moment. You don't have to close your eyes. Maybe you just kind of focus your gaze somewhere. And let's just collectively imagine, what would it be like to thrive in everyday life? Not only for you, but your neighbors, your family, your children, your parents, in the country you're living in a neighboring country, in a country far away. What does thriving look like? Now, bringing it back to your own body, your heart. Can you imagine what would thriving feel like? In a world, in a time and place where you are thriving, what are you doing then that you're not doing now? What would you be saying to yourself in a world, in a time, in a space and place where you are thriving? What would you be saying to others around you? What would you be hearing from others? And then take a deeper, nice inhale, a deep exhale. Your eyes were closed. Open them back up. Imagining. I think it can do something in a really good way to our nervous system, even if we just use our imagination. Just thinking about it being a child or the children in your life, that imagination can really be rejuvenating. It can be inspiring in some way. And so I just want to offer that as a tool, an imagination, daydreaming, even as a way to really like an antidote to anxiety, worry, and doubt that has us thinking more future oriented, taking us out of the here and the now, robbing us from being present in our own lives for ourselves and for others.
I'm so glad you mentioned cultivating a childlike relationship with this imagination because I think children aren't beholden to anxiety, worry, and doubt the way adults are.
Mm-mm.
And it's a good reminder that sometimes we put that into our children. We put that into our little ones who we surround ourselves with. And so being able to remember or connect to a time when the world wasn't a scary place, when the bills weren't piling up, when the responsibility didn't rest on our shoulders, and how freeing that was.
Mm.
And being able to hold a small space in our heart for that, that we can dip our toes into, reconnect with, and find that hope springs eternal in that place.
It's so beautiful. I don't know why I was thinking back to being a kid on my bike, on my blue bike with my banana seat and my basket in the front and feeling free as the wind. And then at some point, I don't know what age that is, you become acutely aware. I mean, there's like a fine line of like, I can't wait to get older. But then you do become acutely attuned and aware to stresses in life, whether it be a parent or they just adults around us. So it is an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, how messages we might be pouring into others.
I saw something on the internet recently that said, remember when you were a child and you were jumping on a trampoline and you fell down and no one else stopped jumping, so you couldn't get back up? That's what being an adult feels
Oh
like.
my God. Not only is that like a vision I can imagine, it's happened.
You
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
You
It's like the
feel it.
heaviness, and you're like, I'm God, would you guys just stop for 1
I
minute?
just need a second.
Oh, adulting. Oh.
It's so true. Adam Grant posted a while back something about how anxiety is like a caricature. It magnifies the flaws and minimizes the successes. And I feel like we all get stuck in that mindset, very future focused. And we need little reminders to come out of that
Mm-hmm.
and focus on the here and now. Do you have an experience that you'd like to share related to anxiety or worry and how it has impacted your life overall?
Huh. I think that, hmm, I think that it is a double-sided coin. I've never been diagnosed, but I think just what I've read and what I've known, I would say I have like a functional level of anxiety, meaning that that anxiety keeps me pushing, propelling, go, go, go. So I guess in one way where I'm like, oh, look at all that I've achieved. But there's a cost to that. And there's the other side of the coin, which is wreaking havoc on my nervous system and the exhaustion that I've hit and burnout because I was fueled by this constant worry. If I stop, then what's going to happen?
My relationship with anxiety is maybe the opposite because I remember in my 20s feeling very anxious about not having my life figured out and almost being paralyzed. So afraid to make a decision because I was afraid this decision would determine the next 5 years, the next 10 years, my entire life. And I've said it before. This is when my mom gave me this really solid piece of advice that said, fear of the future is just fear that you can't handle what comes next. But you can. You have the tools, you have the experience, and you have people to lean on when you feel like you need extra support.
Mm,
Sort of giving me permission to even make a decision in that moment. What job do I apply for? Where do I move? Like, what do I say yes to?
yeah.
I was so overwhelmed when I looked at the grand expanse of the life I could have. I was paralyzed.
I feel like thinking about it too is like, well, this independence, I have to make it work. I have to take care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what fuels a lot of it.
And where do you feel that anxiety in your body? For me, I feel it in my jaw. I feel it in my chest.
Yeah. I think my dentist would definitely say my jaw because of the grinding of my teeth. And it's not just this current dentist, it's every dentist I've had. And it's so wild because they're like, you seem so calm. I'm like, I know.
Still waters run deep.
Yeah, yeah. So there's that. I also, when I really cue into it, and again, doing more yoga and embodiment practices, mindfulness meditation, I'm more in tune with it. It doesn't mean I do a good job of always regulating myself, but how it lives in my body, I've noticed, and I can counterbalance. My breath is really shallow. It lives more like in my upper body, real shallow breathing. And then I'd say in my shoulders, noticing how it's tight and like lifted up towards my ears. And I'm like, oh, right. Everything's like ready to mobilize forward, shoulders rounded and up, and like breath all up in the upper chambers of my lungs.
It's a tenseness
Yeah.
that we feel.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally
Almost,
agree.
especially I would say if I'm really in it, it's like this bracing of like almost like a holding on,
Yeah.
whether it's holding on for dear life or holding on, bracing of what might happen that is out of my control. That's really how I've, I could say currently when it happens and when in the past.
I always have to remind myself to drop my tongue from the roof of my mouth.
Mm,
If I'm really in an anxious period, I'm sitting there and I think, oh, just let it go.
yeah.
And I'm laying in bed or I'm sitting on this, like I melt in a way. And I try to go through top to bottom where I feel the tension and just to let go. Those
Yeah.
muscles that I'm holding on to.
Oh my goodness. It's just coming to me in this moment. When we talk about being grounded, rooted, we are more connected with the lower parts of our body. And this anxiety we're talking about is the opposite. And no wonder everything is lifting up and out. And it's anxiety that's usually we're stuck in our mind, but then it impacts our body. But everything's lifted up and out. Amazing.
It's so true. What are some common sources of anxiety for you? I worry about money. And in the moments and seasons of life where I haven't, wow, I feel like I'm living a totally different life. Money, weight, accomplishment. I don't have little kids to keep alive, but I worry about my impact on my family. Am I doing enough? Am I calling enough? Am I connecting enough?
So these are more like worries.
Yeah, but they give me anxiety. It always starts, I doubt I'm doing this right. I'm worried I can't accomplish this. And then those two things for me, like worry and doubt is the top of the funnel. And then anxiety lives at the bottom.
I was just realizing, it's like a chain reaction almost,
Mhm.
or like a funnel. That's the way you, kind of think about
And
visualizing it.
we hop in the funnel, this fun little ride,
Right.
through doubt, through worry.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I'm going on a date. I worry. Is this someone who's going to see my profile photo and see me in real life and think I don't match what I look like? I'm worried. And then in 10 minutes, I'm anxious.
God, how much just mental and physical energy it just really robs us of, huh?
Absolutely. I think about like in a rugby match or a soccer match, like all the time that we lose during the game just gets added on at the end. If I could do that with the time that I am anxious and I worry during the week, and I could add it on for like better play at the end of the week, that would be amazing.
Oh my gosh.
That would be amazing.
What you're just highlighting for me is like be more acutely attuned to as I move through my day, what is it? And kind of, because I think there's just a lot of worry and doubt that just, it's there, but maybe I'm not as conscious of it.
My dad used to say, still does, shoot the closest alligator first. And sometimes that helps me orient my mind to, okay, I'm worrying about these things, but what can I do in this moment?
Mm,
What's the one thing I have to tackle right now in order to make the next step?
yeah, that's you said that one day to me, and that really hit the nail on the head. The other one is just just one thing. What is
Mhm,
just one thing? And
mhm.
then usually that just kickstarts into just doing the next thing and the next thing. It's like anything. It's like getting started is the hardest part.
One thing that I've also been thinking about as we have had conversations around aging and birthdays, I wake up in the morning or I feel a pain in my knee as I'm working out, and I worry, is this the beginning? Is this the start of like the slow, steady decline?
Mm,
Is this now chronic? Is this now my life? And so I have that worry a lot.
wow. We never talked about this. I have the same with my shoulder. It's like, oh, F.
Is this it?
Yeah, but then the thing I remember, especially for those that I've seen, actually, I just talked to my 95-year-old aunt last night. Oh my God. Aunt Helen is sharp, sharp, sharp in her mind. Her body, of course, is declining and she talks about what she does, but she's living in one of those facilities where it's like her little apartment. She takes care of herself. She goes out into the dining hall for her meals, but she said, I am so proud. I take care of myself. And she has all these regiments and things over time. Anyhow, it just got me thinking about that, where I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you. And I told her that. But then also thinking of like, it's how we relate to that because it is going to happen. But yeah, no, I think it's a real fear, right? Of like just thinking like, oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some like strategies or techniques that you have found helpful in managing anxiety or worry?
Mm, got to come back to the body because the body can only be in the present moment. That is powerful. But sometimes when I'm in a spiral, when anybody's in a spiral, sometimes the last thing you want to do is come back to the body. But it's just taking a moment to pause. And so if it doesn't feel okay to be in the body, like you talked about your knee or maybe your shoulder, it's just like pausing. It's like taking that deep breath. It's just orienting to your surroundings, like seeing. I often use like what are the 5 things that you could see, coming back to the tactile things we can feel, touch, see, hear, coming back to that. Another thing is like I love is dance it out. Music is also really restorative. You don't have to dance if you don't want to. Just put music on and lie down and just allow yourself to receive the frequency. I think that's a big strategy for me. I think over time, really trying to manage is doing routines and ritual. How do I start my day? How do I end my day? So I know when I wake up and grab my phone, not a good start. So doing things that are more body based, obviously washing your face, brushing your teeth, taking a shower. But if I can get myself to move in some fashion, maybe just be more aware and really with focus making food for myself in the morning, that is going to be a better way than grabbing technology. Just going to spin me up.
Mentioned it earlier about like what's the just one thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I can do one thing early in the morning, it does set me up for a bit of a better day. One of my flaws, there are not many, let me say, but one of my flaws is that when I start to feel anxious and overwhelmed, I retreat into myself.
Hmm.
And in that moment, I don't think myself as a very hospitable place because I'm super future focused.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing that helps me manage anxiety and worry is spending time with people I love. It's like sometimes if I'm MIA for too long, you have noticed this, you'll reach out and just be like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Because I'm generally like, so overwhelmed that I don't even want to speak on it. But it is through speaking on it and through sharing the burden that I find I'm able to make small steps forward.
Yeah. I think really the strategy has been exploring, finding what works for you. A mentor of mine, we talk about this for a lot of self development work, is what are 3 sure ways you can recover yourself when you're in those moments.
Mm,
So, like for you, relationship, and then whatever the other 2 are, and then share that with your anybody you feel comfortable with because then they could support you. So I know that when you get quiet, then that is like, "Oh, I want to reach out and check on you." And I surefire, like you said, it comes out. And so that's really helpful. Like, what are 3 things that you know, no matter what, come back to, and then just share those with people in your life that you give permission to help you with that.
I love that. I read this really interesting study. I've shared it with you before
Mhm.
about how researchers studied the brain development of teenagers, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and the effect that the stress and anxiety of the pandemic had on these kids. And girls' brains over like the 4 years, let's say, girls' brains developed almost like at a rate 4 times boys' brains. And what the study sort of linked is that the stress of isolation on girls forced them to grow up faster because they didn't have the mechanism to share and to commune and to connect with women and girls face to face, which to me proves that it's a very valid and important way to work through anything in life. Friends, family, therapy, it all plays a very big role for me when I'm navigating anxiety or worry. We've talked about it before. I think therapy is a great tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, because it helps you, friends and family will be there maybe to listen, usually give advice,
Yeah,
sometimes unwelcome.
uneducated.
Yeah. So with therapy, I think we both can agree on, it helps you to do a little bit of this like excavation, if you will. Really, and it's somebody that the only thing they have is like wanting you to be the best version of yourself. So it truly is a container, if you're up for it, to really dive in and really explore and get to know yourself better. That's really been the biggest change is the self-development work, the therapy, the, you know, being open to receiving feedback, being in inquiry about myself, understanding how I work, even I would dare say meditation, silent retreats, understanding how my own mind works. What are my soundtracks that play over and over again? And how do I befriend them? How do I start to say, like the fear, ha ha ha, I see you, not today, sit over here. And something else I was going to say that you have mentioned earlier, not on this podcast, but I think another one is when we're in the worry of like, oh my God, what if we start to catastrophize all the things are going to go wrong? How do we flip it and go, but what if it goes right?
Or I did a combo with Callie. What if is anxiety and worry, even if is like a speaking from a place of confidence. Like, what
Yes.
if no one reads my book? Well, even if no one reads my book, the exercise of writing an entire book has opened so much within me. It's like being okay, whatever the outcome,
Yes.
which goes back to what my mom said. Whatever comes next, you can handle it.
Yeah.
And it all starts up here in our minds,
Yes.
for good and for bad. The spiral is here, but also the key to ending the spiral is also here.
Ooh, and you're pointing to your mind, your head.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What role does comparison play in your anxiety or self-doubt?
I don't think very much.
That's amazing.
That's what I'm trying to check myself. Is that true? I don't. I think at this stage in my life, there isn't like, oh, by this, I should have been able to accomplish that. I I think it's more of like scarcity,
Mm.
security, safety is like more of where the anxiety, worry, and doubt come from. Or maybe the doubting, I mean, as I said, doubt, I could think of like in my own abilities, second guessing. I think I'm honestly harder on myself than, yeah, I have, for whatever reason, I just have this like measure. Sometimes it comes in for self versus me against another. Yeah, it's kind of, maybe it's strange, but that I know that's why I'm noticing and do know about myself. How about for you?
It depends on what I'm worrying about. I don't have comparison issues when it comes to like career success because I have a very clear picture of what I want my life's work to be. But comparison sinks in for me when I hate to admit that I fall victim to this, but comparison does sink into me when I think about romantic relationship.
Mm.
And go ahead.
In what way?
I think it comes back to maybe a sense of not being good enough. And when things don't go the way I want them to go, comparing myself to other women, no one that I know, but like after a breakup and you find that so and so's dating someone else. Not that I even want to be with so and so, but like what does the someone else have that I don't?
Yes, I
I
get that.
I
I've been
do
there.
find that sneaking in sometimes.
Mhm. Oh, interesting. I get that. And I was even thinking, going back to the differences we're now highlighting, I was like more of what is it about me that's missing?
It's a sick feeling. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Another thing I was thinking about in this topic, really anxiety, worry, and doubt, much like stress, is part of the human condition. And I think it's not about getting to a place in life where we have none of that because it's going to continue at different levels as we move through different phases of life. You mentioned being in your 20s, and that is very normal. And I remember that too. Like, what am I doing with my life? What is my career? Am I happy? What about relationships? And then, 30s, you start to date more and you get into relationships. Some people get married, start a family. It just continues to elevate and it will shift, it will change. So I think it's really about getting to know yourself, getting to know how you best can have strategies to help you work through these things. And I mean, it's just so invaluable, as you mentioned, about community. In fact, I'm reminded of one of my mentors saying the phrase, community is immunity.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like that.
because we can't, we can't and we will not heal alone. We heal in community. We need each other. And so that's just one thing as you've been speaking that's really being highlighted to me that I think is so important to speak out loud.
I think that's a very valuable thing to understand, especially if we have listeners who, from a relationship perspective, lean towards that anxious attachment style. You can do all the work in the world on yourself while you're single, but in relationship, like you said, community is immunity. In relationship, that's where triggers will come to light. And it's in that bond and in that community that we can work through them. Sometimes I think we panic when we find a new relationship or find someone that we feel we match with really well, but the anxiety sets in and something happens and it is all a part of the process. And you can't run away from being able to share those moments with the right people.
Hmm.
Community to me is one of the most important things.
And when you look at the studies they've done in blue zones across the world for what's part of the formula for people living 100 plus years, yes, food and diet and exercise, but community is a really big part of that. So I'm not surprised.
And now there's so much research too about like the loneliness epidemic
Hmm.
and how even prior to the pandemic, but sort of exponentially now, more people are living alone longer and finding it very difficult to connect with others. It's almost like we have all of this opportunity to connect at our fingertips digitally, but that doesn't feed the type of connection we want as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And it can even sort of exacerbate the anxiety we feel.
Yeah.
Because, oh, I can connect with people through Messenger, through WhatsApp, through all these things, but I'm not feeling the same thing from it.
Mm-hmm.
Is something wrong with me? The spiral starts. We start to get nervous, all these sorts of things. I am very grateful we live in a time where there seems to be a breaking down of the stigma around speaking about mental health and anxiety and depression and all of the things that we feel internally.
Mm-hmm.
I know as women, we do such a good job of coming together in community to talk about this, but the men are never far from my mind when we think about topics of anxiety and mental health because I don't think they're really given the permission to even explore having the tools to adapt to that sort of stuff. I'm thinking of all of you, actually. And just know that you're not alone. I'm not sure that leaving you guys with like a piece of advice is something that we feel is authentic because we're not experts. But I do know that you're totally capable to handle what comes next because we all have great lived experience. If you need to hear it, here it is. You are lovable and capable.
Our hope for you this week is that you tune in to what may be causing you anxiety, worry, or doubt, and turn towards what you find restorative.
As we wrap up another serving of Biscuits and Sunshine, we want to take the opportunity to, like always, thank you guys for being here with us. We know sometimes the topics can feel heavy, but we want you to know you're not alone. To our friends, to our families, to our first-time listeners, thanks for being here.
If you love what we're serving up, be sure to subscribe and rate us on your favorite streaming platform. Also, head over to Instagram and give us a follow at Biscuits and Sunshine, all spelled out. This is Biscuits and Sunshine with Callie and Landra.